So we are going to get started. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm just trying to get something going each week. I'm working on a lot of different things, getting ready for Christmas. So we've got, this week we're going to show how to do some repair on something like this, where my wife found this really nice styled Mexican Nativity scene from thrift store. It had most of the parts, but it's missing some key people. Of course, it's missing the baby Jesus, and it's missing Joseph. But in general, a lot of it's broken in a couple little places. Some of them very minor, some of them a little bit more. So I think it'll be a fun little lesson, and it's very well worth repairing. This has got a really nice style to it. I really like the all the different paintings that are on the fronts of these. So I'll show you the reference as I get ready here. And yeah, I'm just going to get started and start approaching and show you some different ways to add to something like this. Now, these are terracotta, so water-based earth clay, depending on where you're from, what you call it. But these guys, yeah, some of them are missing a little bit more than others. But overall, in really good condition, and these lovely little paintings on the fronts of everybody are just so fun to look at. And yeah, very impressed overall with this. Some of them, I've seen them on Etsy and eBay, and they're you know, different levels of detail and different kind of quality standards, but I assume it depends on where they're made of. These are all handmade, I'm sure, by people who do this kind of thing regularly, but really nice work here. Quite impressed. So some of them have some damage, some bent to them. A lot of these I've seen online. These pins come out more straight. So I'll be doing a few fixes like that, just some simple things. The biggest thing is going to be the whole character that's missing. Personality, I should say. And this one you can see, they were kind of thrown in a box, I assume, and just, they cracked and lost some pieces. So repairing a giant piece like this isn't so easy, but it's nearly impossible to do with straight terracotta or earth clay, because these are already fired, and the second you touch water-based clay to this, it's just gonna dry up and crack off. It's nearly impossible to get it to stick. So I'm actually going to be using Super Sculpey and see how it looks. It'll obviously look weird while it's being repaired, but once it's done, I should be able to bake it. I could even bake them right onto the piece, but once they're baked, if you take them out of the oven and you glue parts onto other parts, you can do it pretty quickly, and you end up with a little bit of play, and even just simple crazy glue. You can get pieces to join and be as permanent as it needs to be. So some of these are quite minor as far as the damage goes. Just one little ear missing, but these have all been fired. Got little bits inside, probably straw or whatever they use to pad it when they're firing. Usually something that burns. I haven't done much actual terracotta work in a long time. I've done some sculpting and some lessons, but not baking in a kiln, because I just don't have access to a kiln right now. But you can see some of these are quite minor. Little chips here and there. Such lovely little paintings. This one's nearly perfect, it's just missing a finger. Little bits around the hair. It's hard to tell what they did there. It looks like it's a form of terracotta where you have like a really wet clay. You probably just the slip that they use to join the different parts as they're sculpting, and then it looks like they've brushed it in to make it look more like the rough parts of hair. You can see on these little lambs, they do it around the edge. They just left it loose on purpose to make it look a little furry, I guess. I don't know. I don't think that's an accident. The rest of the qualities are so clean that I really doubt it would be accidental. Alright, last two we got here. That guy's missing a nice big chunk. No names on the bottoms, so I'm not sure who's who. It's obvious there's 3 wise men there. And I believe this would be the Mary. She's got the extra little sparkles, like a halo. And it looks like she's missing the main part of her shawl. So yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to paint there. I'm going to look at some other references. There's a bunch of these dolls online if you look for Mexican pottery nativity scenes. You can see a whole bunch ranging a lot in price. And it depends on the size and the quality, I'm sure, but when you see them marked up to $500, you know, the person who made it's not getting that. So please try to find the source if you can, if you're trying to get this kind of thing, and you know, pay the artist who made it, not just somebody who bought it and marked it up on eBay or Etsy. But yeah, these are just so lovely. Really impressed. So it's going to be a trick. Not so easy. I don't think I'm going to have a real easy time at trying to make this exact copy or copying the style, but it'll be a fun exercise in that for myself too. See if I can match it, make it stand together and look like it belongs with the set. So I'll start with this kind of thing. This is super easy. So I'm just going to bend these straight. Whenever you're bending this kind of wire, any kind of wire really, you got to be really careful not to kink. A lot of people have a hard time with it when they're first trying to do it. Let's just say I've had some practice with some wire, and the more you do, the easier it gets. I have a good track record with getting kinks like that out, so you can see that one's pretty bad. So I'm just going to support the wire, carefully bend it, not squeezing too hard. I'm holding it still in this case, and then pushing it with my finger because it feels a little loose. Let's see how straight we can get this. Oh, pretty close. Pretty close. But yeah, you got to be really careful not to bend it too fast, back and forth, or you'll just break it right off. Sometimes you got to go a little past it and then push back to get the kink out. And there we go. Not too bad. Pretty sure they're supposed to go straight out. Looking at the different references, they seem to come out straight. Some of them go up a little bit more, but I'm not going to go trying to reinvent anything here. Something like that. Not too bad. And so things like this, where the wing is obviously cracked there, you can see the inside support wire. This kind of thing will be easier just to replace the whole wing instead of trying to join something onto that. But yeah, there you go. You can see what was holding that on. That'll actually hold a piece of clay really well. So I will I'll do my best to match that side in reverse. That'll be a good starting point maybe. Then we'll get into some hands and see what else we can do with these cloth pieces, because they are going to be a little tricky. So I'm going to move some around here, get my clay out, get started here. Pretty sure these two are villagers. I couldn't find names in any of the searches I did, but they're, yeah, pretty sure they're extra villagers with gifts. And yeah, they'll have pretty interesting scenes on them. Some of them have the same animal going across all of the sets. This one looks like a little bit different each one. Some kind of birds, except for Mary and, oh no, the girl also. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'll try to copy the style, and without copying one of them exactly, because as you can see, they're all a little different. Interesting. Even the backs of their capes on these three guys, they all match in quality, but are very different from each other, as they should be. All right, so let's see what we can do here. So yeah, let's start with this one, because I think I can match that pretty easily from the other side. So I'm just going to layer down for reference to get my clay out. So this is just the same Super Sculpey firm that I've had for a long time. I've already cut it apart, so it doesn't come in these sheets, of course. If you've seen this, any of my other stuff before, you know that I've used a lot the pasta maker. So it's just one of those Italian pasta rollers. I use the sheet part to get it sort of reconstituted, because it comes out very brittle. Even now you can see it's quite brittle. It will break, it'll produce little crumbs, but when it's warmed up a little bit in your hand and worked with a tool, you know, it holds this detail so perfectly that I just can't use anything else after using this. It's just so good. So I will see what I can do here, just using some regular wooden and metal dental tools. Alright, first thing is to get a rough volume that sort of matches. I can feel it pretty good in my hand. Let me just warm this up a little bit first. Hands are not too warm right now. You see, it'll stay a little crummy first little bit there. So right, this gets a little off. I have this camera with you know, these loops on it so that it focuses. If I don't have that on, it's all out of focus and weird. But some brilliant toy unboxer showed this cool trick with these jewelry loops. It allows me to, you know, even get in really close if I need to, but then you see the loops and that's not as great. But this first loop is pretty good. Really good for this. Lets you see what I'm doing. I don't have to worry about it too much. Oh, oops, I forgot to switch the chat. All right, well, yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens with this. I'm just sort of doing this for fun. And if anybody pops in the chat, wants to say anything, you know, I don't mind, but try to keep it related to the actual subject here. All right, so I'm going to do this in reverse. So first thing is to get the rough size and shape. And then you can see that they did this, it looks like it's a press mold, I would assume, just based on the way the clay is rough and super clean in the inside. So it means they had a piece of clay, they had some kind of mold, probably rubber, and they were able to press a piece of clay into it and then pull it out and bake it. But you have to have a little bit of extra clay for that, otherwise it would be too thin and too hard to handle while it's wet. It might not be rubber, it might have been something else that just allowed them to pull it out once it dried. Thing about earth clay as well is it will shrink when the water evaporates out, so you have to be really accurate, very hard again to join things together from something that's been fired. So all the more reason to use this other clay and just paint it to match and be done with it. And still in a good way. I think it'll be the best. Look for it. All right, let me get. You can see I've got way too much clay here, so that's okay. I want a little more so I can deal with it. No. I will just use this blade to trim it down. I guess at that. Let's see, I need to take off about a third of it. So I'm just going to use the blade and very carefully press into it without cutting myself. Do it slowly. I can press in and cut without distorting it too much. So on purpose, I made one side flat so that I could simulate this pretty well. So I'm just going to get around here and might as well copy the shape exactly. So to do that, I'm going to just use the tool that's sharp and cut along it as I press it down. And it's a little bit bigger. That'll give me some wiggle room here. Now the texture that's on it, if I really want to simulate that, I'm probably going to have to press some kind of fabric into it or something to generate that. I'm trying to think of what I have around, maybe a paper towel or something. I'm going to switch back to this blade because it's a little bit sharper, easier to cut without it flaking. Now this stuff is carvable, and once it's baked, especially, it's especially carvable once it's baked because it's hard. They say like ceramic, but it's a little bit different than ceramic. But it does have some similar properties. It will break if you drop it, but it has a certain hardness to it that allows you to do sanding and carving in a pretty useful way. So the reason I'm shaving it off with this as well is because the more I handle it, the warmer it gets, and you see it's starting to get all soft and nice, but sometimes that can be a little bit of a problem. So I think we're pretty close here. I'm not too worried about it. Thing is, that sits on there, it'll balance nicely. Looking at the thickness overall, I think I'm pretty close. Alrighty. Now, I guess they got a little bit thicker towards that side, so instead of the thicker on the spot where it joins to that piece, so instead of doing a whole thing where I mess this up, I'm just going to join a little piece like this, just to thicken it up there to match. Maybe a little less than that. Doesn't need to go all the way. The hardest thing about dealing with any of this kind of clay is usually the handling it with your hands as you press, especially joining pieces like this. You know, they will just fall apart if you just press them together, but if it's slightly warm, you're holding on to it, this kind of clay will join to itself really well. I talk about that a lot in my other class, the full series there, if anybody's ever watched that. Alright, I'm going to just use the table a little bit to press it down. And then we'll get started on these little feathers, see what happens. So using the table, I can press against it, spread it without distorting it too much. But a little back and forth is not bad, especially when you want to join two pieces together. Having it mix together a little bit like that is it's a good thing. Alright, so this is the back of the wing. I'm not too worried about it. Mostly flat. Check again. It's probably expanded a little bit since I've been handling it and smushing it. It did. So I'm just going to do a nice quick push in. There we go. All right. So now this part, I'm just going to press this in, see if it balances. So I want to see it on there. I'm going to just take it off again to work on it, but if I'm holding it very carefully, I should be able to squeeze it on there. The deeper it gets, the harder it is to put on without squishing it. As you can see already, this is a pretty useful clay for this. It holds its shape, it doesn't fall over, doesn't really need an armature inside if it's not too thick or thin. If it's really thin, it would flop over, and if it was much thicker, it would also be too heavy to hold its shape while I'm working on it. So for this though, this looks pretty well balanced, pretty good. Quite happy with that. Alright, see what we can do here. So I'm just going to slowly ease it off, carefully. Careful. Oh, hi, somebody's here. Thank you. So let me know if you have any questions about what I'm doing. I'm just sort of talking through my thought process. But this is stuff that I need to get done this week. So it's going to be some random stuff, but I'm going to try to post a lot more often, maybe a lot more this week, but we'll see. Still got other stuff going on. All right. So now I'm going to look at this and try to mirror this up. So one super easy trick is probably just to press into it. The problem with pressing into it is I will have the reverse of what I need. But it may give me a really nice little outline. Oh, look at that. So yeah, that's kind of useful. So I'm going to use that to basically trace the reverse. So without pressing too hard, which is going to be similar to what they probably did with the original clay, I'm going to now use this as my mark and just start drawing with the tool where I want the parts to be. So I won't lose this essentially before it kind of melts in. There we go. Not too bad. Now this little bit at the end, I don't know. It's almost going to be trickier to try to match the sort of handmade look of this, but it's part of the fun. Let's see what happens. Kind of curious. So now to get each one of these guys, I think this is almost the right shape tool for this. It has a really nice flat, really nice, almost sharp but not too sharp. I love these tools. These are, I believe they're called shapers, according to dentists, or plastic cap shapers. Sorry, shapers is this is a shaper. Rubber, silicone rubber stuff. These are plastic cap tools for dental work. So when they're putting something on a tooth and they need a tool to massage whatever the heck that chemical stuff is, probably a resin, usually UV resins I'm guessing, or for capping a tooth, they need something smooth, but these shapes are so perfect for sculpting. I have a few favorite tools of this type. This one was an old broken one that I actually sanded down to make an even more interesting shape, so can be done, but this is not quite the right width for this, and it's also got a point on it, so I think I'm going to use this one. So I want to go in order. I'm going to have to go backwards because they build up as they go in. So I'm going to just use these marks that I've got and sort of press around. I'm going to start on one side. They're not too deep, these feathers, but they're obvious enough. So that'll be the one side. Now I'm going to go the other way. Flip my tool, flip my hands, and then go the other way. I can feel it getting soft in my hands. I gotta be careful. Starting to get a little floppy. That's not a very good angle. Let me try this angle. Yep, that's better. Not too bad. And now I'm going to go around the tip, but I'm trying to think of what I could use. This might be a little better. This is just a bamboo skewer of some kind. I can't remember what I even got it from. I believe it's bamboo. You can see in the tip it's all weirdly grained. It's not quite wood, but it's sanded down really nice, and I do change its shape every now and then, but it's not a bad tool. Just need something to roll, so I want to get the tip of the feathers just really quickly. It's kind of like what I do with the fingertips almost. Oh yeah, that's working. So I'm just rolling it as I press. I'm not trying to do too much. I'm trying to get their same level of detail. Yeah, it's working. Yeah, I'm not always sure. I'm just sort of figuring it out as I go too. Just go experiment. But that kind of works. Not too bad. All right, so let's see what happens now. Let's see if I can go down the feather a little bit more. It looks like there is a little bit of a press on the inside, but not always. It's hard to see. It doesn't... Yeah, it looks like it's in the middle of some of them, but not all of them. Anyway, let's go down this first. Just want to hint at it first. I'm not trying to press too deep. Sort of sketching it out as I go. And they're not too big there, so I don't want to go too far. So it looks like they're offset every other, which is a good way to do feathers. Okay. A little bit bigger than I want it to be. Might end up having to shave off a little bit. I think I'm going to come back with this blade. I'm still looking for my favorite tool. Not seeing it. I'll probably need this little guy too. Tools with little spheres on the end are also super useful. I really like this one set. Very useful. This is all over online. You can find it pretty easy. I still go back to these wood tools a lot because they have nice, smooth, polished surface, which is just done by sanding the heck out of them with sandpaper by hand. I find them really useful, these different shapes like this. Flat, curved on one side, flat on the other. Really good shape for this kind of thing. Really, I just need something smaller than my fingers. All right, I might come back to this. I can always cut a little off on the inside if I have to. So let me go down and see what I can do here. Take a little bit off of there. Again, I'm not trying to put too much detail into this. I want to match this. But some of these feathers do have a little bit of a line down the middle, so I'm just going to go real quick. Close enough for now. I get disconnected. Oh, okay, now it's back. Well, I hope this goes well. I'm not sure if this is not something I've been doing a lot live, but we'll see. Hopefully it works out. Doesn't seem like the weather's too bad today. Should have good internet reception. Just shrinking it back a little bit. All right, let's get this in. Now, it's tricky because the more I press, the deeper it goes. So to get these raised up as I go in is a little trickier. Doing it this way, I mean, I could just add a little piece of clay for each one, but it would almost be too much. I need to do that, or just get a little thin sliver and go one at a time down there if I was doing like proper feathers. But this is something I'm trying to simulate here, so I don't want to go too crazy. All right, and that is too high up. I want to be down there. And this kind of thing is a little bit easier because it's not going to be seen on the same side at the same time, so you can kind of get away with a little bit of guesswork here. Looks like it's a lot closer to the edge. Eesh. All right, so I've got to work my way out as it goes. I think I'll be able to come back and press that. Let's just get the thickness kind of right. All right, here we go. And I don't think there's any below that. Nope. Next one in, the next one in. Let's just kind of freehand this. See what happens. Yeah, we can see it's starting to get too deep. This one comes around. Something like that. And then a couple little ones in there. Should do it. All right. I think I've got it pretty well outlined now. Should be able to go in there and clean that up. So to achieve that slope, I'm going to come back at it like this. And just press the, see, I kind of have the right shape down. Hopefully the stream's not interrupted there. I can see that the chat's popping on and off, disconnecting, but I'm gonna just keep going. Need to get this done anyway, and I don't know. Normally I'd be listening to some music or podcasts. Not quite sure how to do that at the same time as this. Don't know if I can, and talk really. Guess it'll depend on how long these end up going for. But I will assume people have their own music. deeper and deeper. Gotta be careful. Can also help by doing that little press in again, get it back to its right shape. Oh, that's close. It's close. Don't hate it. Alright, I'm just going to clean this up a little bit and then call it done for now. Work on the some of the cloth maybe. We'll see how this goes. I probably won't film every second of this. But we'll check back in different parts maybe this week as I go. Got a lot of other gifts to get through making, and only so much time in the day. Alrighty. Now, in this case, so I do want this shape. The point. So I'm going to clean up the in-between of all these. I don't want too many tool marks, so I'm just not going nuts on it. But I'm trying to get a little bit smoother, cleaner tips on these feathers, in-betweens. Clean up those little cracks. There we go. That is not too bad. Actually, kind of like it. And a little bit of the roughness is it's going to look like the original sculpt because it's clay. Similar enough clay. Let's see. I'm going to use this guy for this. We'll get the centers of each of these. That guy's a little bit more true to size and shape. Alrighty, pretty well done with that. Just very lightly rubbing over it to smooth some of the top bits off. And check again size-wise. Look pretty good. And I'll stick it back on for now, just so I don't lose it. And move on to something else. Let's see. Yeah, a lot of that's disappeared because of the pressing. Ooh. Tricky. I have to finish it up and clean it while it's on, otherwise I'll lose that that nice little gap. And this clay bakes at such a low temperature, I could probably even bake it right onto the part here with putting this in the oven. The problem is the paint. I don't want to do it. I don't want to melt the paint off, because if you get paint like this too hot, or even looks like a clear coat that might be on this, that would be a very worst case thing, is having that bubble up and peel off, even in a very low temperature little oven that the Super Sculpey bakes at. It would be very bad. So I'm probably not going to risk baking it on the piece. But for now, there you go. Does a nice little repair. Not too complicated. Still needs a little cleanup, but as you can see, this one's not super smooth and super detailed. But I'll probably run over this with the tool, just cleaning up the little bits inside with something like this. As you can see, the more I work it, the more it just gets messy. But if I'm careful about it, I think I can clean it up. I think that works pretty well. The trick with these things is just to be really light with it. Maybe not use one that's too small. So like this one's slightly larger. This actually might be better for smoothing out these little bits without making these little tears or crummy bits. Yeah, that's not bad. Alright, I like that. Alright, well, let's see what we can do here. Might as well finish her up. Give her a hand. It looks like she was holding something. I mean, the gifts in this set are not terribly complicated. Most of them are just little primitive shapes. I do have some other references that I'm looking at on my other screen that have something. Let me just check, make sure that the angel has a gift. She might not. I'm looking at the other ones. Yeah, I don't see anything in her hands. It looks like she's just got her hand in one hand and the other hand. Yeah, and I looked at 4 or 5 different sets there. Very similar artists. Similar to Mary, they just have sort of open hands near each other. So I guess that's what we'll do. It looks like it broke off right at the hand. You can see that the bracelet or the cuff of the shirt is there. So let's see if we can do a similar thing and just get a little hand on here. Now all these little shavings are nice and thin, so if I pick them up and hold them, get the cat hair out, they'll warm up a lot faster than if I try to cut this off with a block or whatever. So I'm just going to smush it back together. Oh, look at that, almost the right size. Missing a little bit there too. It's the kind of thing that you may just be able to sand slightly or file down and paint over. I don't know if it's worth putting a tiny little tip on the end of that. Yes, even the gap behind the wing. It's just sort of the way that it was stuck on. It should work. It's getting a little loose like this, but that's okay. When I go to bake it, as long as I can slide it on and off while I'm working with it and bake it separately, I'll be able to stick it on pretty quick after pulling it out of the oven, and you should get a real nice bond with the glue. Alright, let's see if we can do a little hand here. I'm going to take this off actually, just so I can set her down and get a clean look at the hand. A similar kind of thing. I want to get the right volume. Now this is got lots of hand demos and things about hands, so I can go look at the other things for that. I really just need a mitt here. Looks like they're doing a mitt and then pulling a few fingers out. Well, not too bad. It's got a nice little palm and thumb pressed out sideways, so it's not too primitive as far as like simplification goes. So I do want the other hand, and I do want the volume to be right. So I'm trying to get the fingers volume, thumb volume, and palm to not get too messed up here. I can get that pretty close by eye, and then get that wrist. Fight the urge to put the fingernails in. A little bit thinner up in here, so I'll just press it down. Just moving the clay along the surface there. Alright, that's pretty good. And then if I want to take a little off, if that thumb is getting too big, I'm just going to work it out like that and then clean that up again. It's a little bit small for me, but not too bad. I've done smaller, so I can do most of it with my fingers. Alright, let's see about getting this on and what we end up with there. I can feel that there's a little bit too much of a point, but I'm kind of leaving it on purpose so that when I press it in, I can get it to be matched without too much distortion. And I'm assuming it's going to squish as I go, so I'm leaving it a little longer so that when I do this kind of press, oh, oops, came right off of my finger. So I do this kind of press, that it will flatten out a little bit. Yeah, you can see her hands are kind of like that. And most of the ones I'm looking at, they're not twinned, they're offset, so it means like one hand in the other. So I think I'll do that. That'll actually help with securing it and keeping it strong so it doesn't fall off again. All right, I think I guessed pretty close on the volume of that hand. Kind of like it. All right, let's see about getting the rest of this right. You can see that there's a little bit of a lip there. Again, this kind of thing, sometimes it's easier just to remove something than to try to join at a weird angle. So I'm just going to use a knife and just carve that little bit off carefully. So the surface will be a cleaner join. And it should be almost impossible to see once I get a little paint in there too. That is not too bad. Alright, so if that's the right size, do a little bit of work on the nails. This is a real quick and easy, not nails, I'm sorry, fingers. So again, not trying to squish it, holding it very carefully. I'll just do a press, press, press. Try to simulate what they did. Maybe switch to this guy. Looks like it's a little bit more of a wedge-shaped tool. I don't think I have that exactly, so I'm just going to press a little bit on both sides with the flat. Not much definition between them. They'll just sort of end flat. So again, I'm not going to try to fix anything. I'm just trying to match. So gotta resist. Right, I think I have it there. I'm trying to get it a little bit thicker at the wrist, so I'm just going to try to ease down a thin bit from around here. So one thing that is helpful is if I want to bake these and not mess them up, transferring them to the oven and back. One good thing you can do is just kind of let it cool down and sit for a couple hours before you try to bake it, because right now it's a little warm and bendy for me just handling it. You can see it doesn't want to stick, obviously, but the more I press it like this, the more it's going to inherit that shape, the negative shape from the broken part. And if I spill a little bit extra even like that with the clay, it's okay, because I know I can sand that off later too, or it'll just crack off when I go to glue it. But as long as the most of the piece makes contact and it's the right shape and size, I should be able to glue it pretty well and make it match. So I'm really just copying the process of whatever they did as far as how this is made. Don't too much knuckle there. Let's simplify that. Okay. Might be a little too long between there and there. I'll try to get that a little flatter. Just working it a little too much and it sort of stretched out. I need to press that back. All right, let's see about that. See, the back of the hand was getting too long. There we go. Yeah, not too bad. All right, I think that's pretty good for her. I'll come back to that in a bit. Yeah, a few little things in the faces, but oh, those are just little imperfections from the way that they went about making these. With the water-based clay is pretty tough. I'm not complaining. If you ever try to do a detailed piece with terracotta, you know. Alrighty, let's get that back on and let's put her aside. Might just do one more little thing here. I guess I don't see a... oh, there's the timer. Yeah, try not to make these too long. But I don't know, some people seem to like it. Just having it live, it's a lot different than seeing time-lapsed. Hopefully people get something out of this. I know I do. Alright, let's see if we can't join this bit that's missing. Now, there'd be no reason to try to redo that whole piece. And they're only kind of loosely joined with slip and baked. That's why a lot of them are breaking on those joining parts. Like this is obviously constructed with one piece of clay on top and really only joined at the top there. The rest sort of just draped and laid and wasn't really glued anywhere else. You can see it without the gloss there, some kind of gloss coating. So that one's going to be tricky, but almost better that it's one big piece. Except for the join there, it's going to be really tricky. This one, I don't know. Let's see what we can do here. I can probably hide a little bit of clay in that hole, which is nice. So that'll be useful for fitting it, and also not having to worry about it be exactly the same thickness. I really just have to match the outside there, and then the rest of the overall thickness on the inside. Let's see what we can do. I think the next few I'm going to do, I'm just going to put some stuff on to listen to. This silence is pretty boring for me, and I don't really like hearing myself talk that much. I try to fill the silence, but I'll try to be active in the chat, but I'm going to just have mostly silence because I cannot deal with the copyright stuff for now, and obviously there's a lot of issues with that. You gotta be careful with music, so I'm just going to assume that you all have your own music to listen to if you're watching these back later, or whatever it is you want to do. And well, I don't know, that's not going to be too bad. Let's see how this goes. I don't want to squish too much. Now, this is handmade, so I mean, if I do handle it similarly, I think I can make that shape without too much trouble. So it points down, gets longer towards the outside, so I want to simulate that. So I want to pull this down. Okay, let's see what happens. Yeah, you can see how it pulls the shape away, right? Like that. If I'm careful at the end and I get that kind of fit, and I drop it on a piece of tinfoil and bake it, it'll bond really nice when I go to stick it back. The problem is that any kind of handling after pulling it away will definitely cause it to lose its shape. So it's a bit tricky. Alright, I think I can do this a little bit thicker than it needs to be, and then come back with the carving. But I don't want to lose the ability to press from the outside here, because then I'll lose this nice smooth transition. Alright, yeah, it's working. That's too low. Not bad. So I'm not worried too much about pressing over this. It does have a clear coat of something on it, so I can kind of rub against it and not worry about it chipping. That'll make a nice smooth transition. I'm pressing a little harder too because I want it to be solid on the inside here. Now I'm going to have to take something away, but I'm going to cheat a little bit so that it's not just a flappy piece that wants to break off. So I'm going to just use this tool to carve away what's sticking out here and try to leave it as thick as possible as it goes back. Probably need a sharper one for this. Again, I'm just pressing into the surface of it, cut it away. Oh, I see. It actually broke all the way up there. So I'll probably put a little bit of that back in. Yep. That will do. Okay. Yeah, probably a little too far out. Alright, let's get this shape right. It's definitely too far out, so I can cut back maybe that much and that much. Yep. So now I'm going to be careful, because if I really start pressing, I'm going to scratch this right up, which I do not want to do. So I'm going to go with pressing instead of scratching. Okay. It's a bit better volume-wise. Yeah, it wasn't that big of a piece. That's okay. I'm just going to let it ease off here so I can get this shaped a little bit better. Pretty impossible to get that while it's sticking on there. You don't want any super sharp corners or super flat areas, but I'm going to try to get it to be the same as it would be if it was the other kind of clay, which again is pretty tricky to do. I'm amazed they have any clothing layers on this. Alright, it's starting to get a little bumpy from handling, so I'm going to again use the table. Just use it for the flattening part. The outside's a little more important. I'm just running down, smoothing it with my fingers. Another good property of this clay. And you can see the shape changed quite a bit just from messing around, but I can get it back in there. Can't press too hard, it'll stick to my fingers again. That is pretty close. Oh, it looks like it came out a little too far there. So I'm starting to lose this line coming straight down, so I have to come back something flat but not too sharp. Get it to be closer to the outside here. Might have to add a little piece, but I'm trying not to, because joining another piece there is just going to make a mess out of it. All right, well, getting close to an hour and a bit here. I think I'll probably stop soon. For now, I'm not sure if I'm coming back today. Seems like a busy time for most people. But, I don't know. We'll figure something out eventually. I'm going to get into a regular streaming schedule, but for now, I just want to make sure I get something up every week at least to keep myself disciplined. All right, this is looking pretty close. There we go. So it's loose. It's loosely fitting, but it will work. And if I very carefully take it off like this and bake it, we'll have a nice piece to stick back on and glue when it's hard, and then paint it up. So yeah, this is just doing some fine work, some hand repair of this set that we found. It's just too cute to let die in some thrift store. So we got it. But yeah, we'll continue this series maybe a bit. I'll work on the missing dolls, and probably record some of that. Got a lot of other things to get done this week. I'll probably pop on here a few more times. All right, thanks everybody.